Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined by Zane Simon for the sixth round of UFC on Fox 16, TJ Dillashaw versus Hanan Barao 2, in which it was basically a repeat of Dillashaw versus Barao 1. He just boxed him up. It was
Yep.
beautiful. Thoughts
Yeah,
on
it
the
was
fight?
gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And I mean, I think it was like what we said on the vivisection going in. Like he's just got his number. I mean, when you watch that first fight, people were like, "Oh, he hit that one punch and the fight changed." Like, no, he had absolutely figured out how Barao fights, and at that point, it's on Barao to change his entire game to beat Dillashaw,
Which
and the
is not
chance.
easy.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's incredibly hard, and I mean, we're talking about somebody who's been great for a decade fighting the way he fights, and then saying, okay, now change it all up to beat this one guy.
Yeah,
Like,
very, very hard to do. Although I have to wonder if Dominic Cruz wouldn't have presented very similar challenges with his movement. He doesn't have the same power Dillashaw does, but his movement, I think, could have flummoxed Barao just as much. But that's neither here nor there. Dillashaw's night, he totally owned Barao, stayed on the outside, took the leg kicks away, bopped in, outboxed him, made him miss, ate some knees on the inside, but otherwise, Barao had almost no offense whatsoever.
yeah, I mean, it's the thing. Like, I mean, Barra's an incredible fighter and a great athlete, but he lands leg kicks on the outside to force you to rush straight in at him, and when you rush straight in on him, he throws 4 or 5 really hard punches all in a straight line to hurt you. And when he hurts you, then he takes you down and submits you, and that's like his whole game. So Dillashaw, he takes away the leg kicks by moving laterally, moves in on an angle, cuts an angle, and suddenly what's Barao going to do? Like all of his game is based on that being able to catch you coming in straight at him. And you
Yeah,
know,
and with Dillashaw moving, both changing angles with his footwork and bobbing his head makes him a very hard target to hit. And Barao, you saw it over and over again. Barao was swinging hard at air, and
yep.
Dillashaw was coming in and cracking him to the face. And that final combination in the fourth round, I counted well over a dozen unanswered shots before I stopped counting, and there were probably another 8 to 10.
Yeah, I mean, he knew he had him hurt. He knew he had, I mean, that's smart fighting. He knew when Barao was at the point where he just had nothing else to give, and then he just broke him. You know?
Yep, yep. And then he just stomped him on the floor into a million pieces. It was
Yeah.
vicious and brutal. And Barao was complaining about the stoppage, but I don't think there's anything to complain about. And there's really not a lot to say else about the fight. I mean, it was a pretty much a repeat of the first one. It didn't have the big dramatic first round pow that hurt Barao in the first fight, but didn't need it. You
No,
know,
that just goes to prove that it wasn't like a fluky punch he landed. I mean that should end that stupid controversy, which never should have been there in the first place.
yeah, it absolutely will. And then you look at the bantamweight rankings. You got Dominic Cruz at number two. Injured again, though. No idea when he's going to come back. Then you got Rafael Alcencao at number three. Poor
Injured.
guy, injured, and he's been waiting for a title shot forever. Then you got Uriah Faber at number four. Land of the Living Dead. I'm not going to fight a teammate in Dillashaw. Well, maybe
And
for enough money, but
and he's up at featherweight right now.
yeah, yeah, dicking around. So that leaves you with Michael McDonald. Uh,
Injured.
yep, Eddie Wineland, who lost tonight to Brian Caraway. Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a bump up in competition for Aljo. I mean,
Yeah, to say the least. So yeah, this division is really I don't know where it goes from here.
I mean, yeah, they either have to rush somebody, they have to wait and hope that, Asunciao gets healthy or McDonald gets healthy at some point in the near future, or Dillashaw's just gotta take time off and wait until a real challenger comes up.
Or a super fight against Mighty Mouse Johnson, the flyweight champion.
That would be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, that might be the thing to do. But we'll see. The rest of the card, though, three other fights on the Fox main card. Co-main event: Misha Tate utterly dominated Jessica Eye, 30 to 27. Eye looked tough. She was
Yep.
outlanding her, but then Misha Tate landed the big shots and dropped her in 2 out of 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted I to win. You know that I did. I wanted to see I win. I wanted to see somebody new fight Ronda Rousey. But it's that damn, like, she backs straight up, throws both her hands out at the same time, and puts her head way up in the air. And that's basically just asking to be drilled. And Tate just, you know, just beat the brakes off her once she hurt her once,
Yeah,
honestly.
she smelled blood, and Misha Tate is just. You can say what you like about her, but she is a tough competitor.
Yep.
She can take a punch and come right back. You can outpoint her for most of the first round, and I was hurting her. I mean, it looked
Yeah.
like I was going to be picking her apart, busting her up, but Tate picked up on the, what you're describing, the bad habits of backing straight up with your head up in the air, and just cracked her, charging in with a big overhand right, dropped her on her ass, and rinse and repeat in the second round. Very dominant performance. Tate's currently ranked number 2 in the division. Rousey's the champion. She's going to be fighting Betch Correa, UFC 190 on next Saturday. I don't know what the odds are yet, but I don't know many people that are picking Correa.
Maybe your mom.
One would hope. But I mean, then you look at the rest of this division. I mean, number 1 ranked Kat Zagano, Rousey's beaten her. 2, Misha Tate, Rousey's beaten her twice. Alexis Davis. Has Davis lost to Rousey yet?
Yeah, she lost in 16 seconds.
Yeah, there you go. Sarah McMahon lost to Rousey. Jessica I just lost to Tate. And then by this point, you're down Sarah Kaufman, Beskaya, about to get her shot. Amanda Nunez, I don't see her getting a shot anytime. Holly Holm at number 9 is the one that we're hoping would get it, but she has been way underwhelming. I predict Holm gets rushed into a title shot fairly soon, though.
Yeah, I think she almost absolutely does. If she keeps anybody who keeps winning in that division basically has to get the shots. I mean, I think if Rousey's smart, she honestly just tries to make sure she fights once a year.
Once a year?
Yeah. I mean, like, go do the Hollywood thing, make a Hollywood career, and then make your MMA career like a legit showcase of your Hollywood career. Like, oh, here's a Hollywood star that also takes legit fights. Isn't that awesome? Rather than a fighter who dabbles in Hollywood. Because, like, I don't think that there's, like, what's the point for her to just keep facing women that she's going to beat in 15 seconds?
Then you've got Chris Cyborg. Move up to 140, take the catchweight fight, do it up big. There's talk of a really ambitious fight card, maybe if Fedor signs with the UFC, just stacking it with the craziest fight card you could. And Rousey Cyborg would be a big addition to something like that.
It would be if they can get Cyborg in there, but I mean that's I don't know that.
Yeah,
Fedor and Cyborg are in the same boat, and if the UFC could somehow figure out a way to work both of them in, it would be counter to everything that they've been able to do with fighters like that in the past.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. All right, so and the other 2 fights on the main card, Edson Barboza and Paul Felder put on a striking showcase. Barboza had the speed advantage. By the 3rd round, had worn Felder down. Really impressive performance from the Brazilian.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I felt, I don't know. I picked Felder, I think, on the show, and then the moment the show was over and I started thinking about it again, I was like, I got to pick Barboza. And I picked him in the staff picks. I picked him ahead of the fight, and it's just Felder represents guys that Barboza's beat before. It's the Bobby Greens, it's the guys that are just like, they're not quite there yet, and Barboza, as he's improved, because he's still not, his career's not that old. And as he's improved, like, he may not be a drastically different fighter than he ever was, but the parts of his game that are problems are getting smaller and smaller. Like, you have to be a much, much better pressure fighter than you used to have to be to beat Edson Barboza.
It's very true, and it'll be interesting to see if Barboza can put anything together resembling a title run. I don't ever see him as a champion, but I could see him working his way up to a title shot.
I could see him winning enough fights that, especially if there's just a time when somebody's injured or when there's the UFC needs a challenger and everybody else who's ahead of him is on a loss or just not, in the right place, then they're just like, hey, he's won 5 fights in a row, Barboza, title challenger.
Yep, he could do it. I could easily see that happening. And in the opener, Joe Lozon just snuffed Takanori Gomi in what was just a sad exhibition of how old and shot Gomi is.
Yeah, Gomi looked good for like a minute. When the fight was just boxing at range, he was feinting, he was setting up his strikes. It's like, this looks great. And then the moment it was out of range boxing, he just looked shot and done. And it
Yeah.
was sad and painful, and I feel bad for. I mean, I love Gomi, and I didn't pick him, but I feel bad for all the hardcore Gomi fans because he teased like he might have something go like at the beginning of this fight, and then it just was like, no, nothing
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and just got beat bad. Good win for Joe Lozon, knocking off a legend, but I don't know that it means anything. All right, let's run through the preliminary card from the bottom up. The 4 fights on Fight Pass started with welterweight Zach Cummings just dusting Dominique Steele. Minute 43 seconds, completely one-sided beating of a kid making his UFC debut. I felt bad for Mr. Steele.
Yeah, I did too. I've been a fan of Zach Cummings as like an underrated talent for a while. I really thought he's a better fighter than somebody who should be opening Fight Pass, for instance. And this is exactly what he should show to prove that these are this is the kind of performance he should be having over somebody like Dominic Steele. And it's too bad because I mean, it's welterweight. It's such a deep division for the UFC to throw a guy in like that on short notice. It's just like you got like 100 fighters on the roster and a world of fighters out there, and you're setting up this kid on a week. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, life is hard. All right, so women's bantamweight Elizabeth Phillips dominated the first 2 rounds over Jessamine Duke, took a beating in the 3rd round, but won a unanimous decision on all 3 cards. Piss poor fight, man. I got to say, Jessamine Duke is one of the worst fighters in the UFC, and Elizabeth Phillips just gassed so much that by round 3, Duke was having a way with it.
Yeah, I feel bad saying it because like Eric Paulson's kind of an MMA legend, especially like a cult icon in the sport. But his gym just does not seem to be prepping these women for the UFC at all. Shayna Baszler, Jessamine Duke, Colleen Schneider, they are not competing. And in part, it's got to be the gym. I mean, maybe they're not the best athletes in the world, but I mean, Phillips was done by round 3, and Duke looked like she had, something left in the tank, but just had no idea what to do with it. Just could not mount any effective offense.
No, not well. She mounted some offense, but not enough to finish it, and that's what she had to do. She was in such a deep hole. But terrible fight. That's enough about that. All right, so lightweight Andrew Holbrook, and got a decision over Ramsey Nijem, split decision. I thought that was bullshit. I mean, Nijem boxed him up both in the 2nd and 3rd round at the beginning, and then it turned into grappling matches that were fairly even. I thought it was a good performance by Holbrook, but no way did he do enough to win that fight.
Yeah, it was a total bullshit decision. I'll say to Nijim's detriment, he gave the judges every excuse to score that fight against him. He just constantly tried to out-grapple somebody who was putting him in danger on the ground the whole fight when he had a huge striking advantage.
An enormous one. I mean, when you're beating the piss out of somebody, why do you take him down?
I don't know. He gave the judges every excuse. So I on that part, I'm kind of like, oh, that's too bad. Ramsey kind of should have seen that one come. But at the same time, it was a bullshit decision. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Nijim clearly took 2 rounds.
Yeah, but it should be educational for Nijim to, learn when you're winning on the feet, keep the fight on the feet.
Yeah.
All right. And then James Krause defeated Darren Cruikshank. Very impressive performance for Krause. Never let Cruikshank get in the fight. Got the submission, but won it on the feet.
I don't know. I actually thought that Cruikshank was, and maybe I need to rewatch the fight, but I thought Cruikshank was playing a pretty good game right up until the point he got thrown on his ass and submitted. Like, I thought it was just sort of like Cruikshank's doing well. He's landing the harder shots. He's, every time they got in close and connected, he just would like push Krause over almost. And then Krause got the clinch one time, got that foot sweep, was on his back and tapping him out in an instant. And I was just kind of like, oh, shit. Well, that kind of, unfortunately, it's like a really weird end of Darren Cruikshank's relevance at lightweight.
Yeah, it is. I'll have to rewatch it, too. I was live blogging it, so a little distracted. But my memory was that Krause cracked him. He was hurt, and then he got the submission quickly. But I have to rewatch it and see. But either way, very impressive performance by Krause. And like you say, kind of the end of a not, I wouldn't even call it a run from Cruikshank, but a flirtation with a run.
Yeah, at one point he looked like he was setting himself up to be a solid action fighter right in the middle of the division, and now he's just kind of getting beat by all sorts of guys.
Yeah, I mean he's got 2 losses in a row, and before that an eye poke where he couldn't continue against KJ Noon. So Times are hard. And then
Yeah.
we had the 4-fight prelim card on Fox, opening with bantamweight Brian Caraway beating Eddie Wineland. Not a fun fight,
No.
but Wineland had nothing for Caraway.
No, that was really sad. And like I I got to say this because we saw basically the exact same style, basic style from TJ Dillashaw, but it's like the problem with Eddie Wineland is not that he doesn't keep his hands up. Like we saw Dillashaw do the same thing. The problem with Eddie Wineland is that he's been fighting long enough that his reactions have slowed and he's slower and older and not the same fighter. He wasn't willing to commit on the punches that he would have landed by sitting down in the pocket early, and he's just throwing all kinds of volume, none of it landing. So it was a sad sight from Eddie Wineland getting outstruck by Brian Caraway. Caraway looked way better and way improved, but still, I never thought I would see that.
Yeah, no, I mean Caraway looked good, but I did not expect him. If he's going to beat Eddie Wineland, you would have thought it would have been on the ground, and it wasn't a devastating win on the feet either. I mean,
No,
he outpointed him, but didn't really hurt him.
Yeah, it was just round after round of out pointing and just kind of sad.
Yeah, but a much more fun fight. Bloody Elbows on Ben Saunders defeated Kenny Robertson by split decision. You could go back and forth. I think I scored it for Robertson, but Saunders was pretty effective on the ground. Saunders also was landing some tasty body kicks, but Robertson was coming over the top with some big punches.
I'm not going to even pretend I heard that, quite frankly. I think that Ben Saunders absolutely dominated and deserved the 30-25. Like, but no, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's all about that first round and whether you consider Saunders getting dropped right at the end of it enough to sway the round against him. And tends to be that it is enough. Usually, if you drop a guy in a round, you usually, unless you're just getting dominated all round, that usually tends to sway the round.
I'd like to see the judges' scorecard and know which round, because everybody gave Robertson at least one round. I'd like to know which round it was.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, Saunders clearly won the third. Robertson pretty clearly won the second. But I couldn't be happier that Saunders gets the win. I want him to enjoy as much success over his career as he possibly can.
Absolutely. So, and then we had a lightweight. Jim Miller beat Danny Castillo by split decision. Not the most action-packed fight, but a good performance from both guys.
Yeah, I think for Castillo, unfortunately, and it looks like Ludwig is really revolutionizing his game, changing it a lot, changing it to model TJ Dillashaw's quite a lot, in fact. And Castillo is not comfortable with it. Like, he has removed so many parts of Castillo's game that it's no longer as sound as it was, and it might become better in the future. But at 36 now, I don't know how much.
Yeah, I think it's kind of late in the game to be trying to teach an old dog new tricks like that. And Castillo, I think, has some of the key moves that you associate with Castillo in the past are gone. Like, he just, was the kind of guy that would periodically just drop a bomb, and I didn't see that happening. Miller got the split decision. Could go either way, but frankly, neither guy is really relevant at this point in the higher reaches.
I thought Miller won it. I wasn't uncomfortable with the decision. I gave it to Miller, but I just think, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, when you change that much about the way a fighter fights, we like to think like, oh, guys can just patch up holes and, more and different training automatically equals better. And it's just, I mean, even if you're doing the more of the right things, that doesn't necessarily make a guy better.
Yeah, very true. And then in the final fight on the prelims, Tom Lawler came out of nowhere with a massive punch in the second round to knock out John Vellante. Vellante was picking him apart up to that point.
Yeah, fucking light heavyweight, man. I mean, that division just never gets any better. Like, John Vellante is slowly improving over years. Like, just, his what was kind of an ugly style that was always kind of bound to gas and like weird fits of success and badness has slowly been improving. Then Lawler comes out after 2 years, looks really mediocre, and then lands one huge punch and wins. And I'm glad Lawler's in there and like can be in the mix at light heavyweight and get a few fights, because there are so few guys in that division that can even do that. But it's just like the division. It just doesn't make the division. I don't know. It's like heavyweight. It's still one of those divisions where it's just kind of nobody's rising.
Yeah, and this used to be, the sports marquee division going back to the Chuck Liddell era, and for a long time you had John Jones at the top. Don't know when John Jones is going to come back. I mean, you still got Cormier, you got Gustafson. That's going to be a big fight. You got Rumble Johnson, lost to Cormier, but still out there. But then you got Ryan Bader. I mean, really, like this guy, and he's got a legit case to say he should
Yeah.
get the title shot. I mean, he's been on a run. It's just that I can remember when Ryan Bader was getting rolled over by the guys at the top of the division, and I don't think he's improved that much. And so, you look down the rest of it, and I mean, I'm not convinced Ovid St. Preux is emerging as anything serious. And then you're in retread country. I mean,
Yeah.
Shogun Hua, Rampage Jackson, these guys are in the top 10. It's crazy. And,
Yeah.
so it is what it is. But John Vellante was number 15 coming into this fight, and he will not be in the top 15 after this. So that's a bummer. But back to the main event, TJ Dillashaw clearly owns the bantamweight division at this point, but like we said before, it's not much of a prize.
Yeah. It really. I don't know. I mean, Dominic Cruz. Honestly, he just needs to come back and get beat by Dillashaw. It feels like that. Like, it's that sort of weird cloud hanging over the division. Is we just need to see Dominic Cruz come back and lose, like, and then
Yeah.
we'll all be like, okay, see, now we know who the champ is.
Yeah,
Where,
I was watching this fight, and I clicked in the middle of it that I had forgotten Cruz was even in this division. Like he missed the entire title reign of Hanan Barao. I mean, he was Barao was going to get a title shot against him. Cruz got hurt, and Barao had a run, and then Cruz missed the entire thing with injury. So it's just extremely frustrating and a bummer. I mean, I wasn't the biggest Cruz fan. I was anything but a Cruz fan, but his last performance was incredible.
and Cruz was the legit champ. I think that's
Absolutely.
the thing.
Yeah.
Is it like even as close as some of his fights were, he was winning title fights in WEC and in the UFC, and he was the legit title holder. Like that made sense. And then he just left, and it's just every top 15 fighter seems to get hurt, and all the potential up and comers. Like, we're lucky that Almeida and Sterling are still like rising right now and haven't suddenly been hit by the Pedro Munhoz, fail a drug test maybe and get like suspended randomly for a year, or the Eric Perez, just kind of start fighting top 10 guys and immediately start losing fights. And like it just feels like it's so hard to get a prospect to the top of that division.
Yeah, it's got Shark Tank qualities and also just sort of a jinx. And so I agree. We got to get Cruz back in there and let TJ face him. Although, as good as Cruz looked in his last fight, I'd be very intrigued to see that fight. We'll see. Well, and next week we'll be back for UFC 190, which is going to have a 7-fight main card on pay-per-view coming out of Rio de Janeiro. That ought to be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be. I don't know. I doubt it'll do poorly because I think Ronda attracts a lot of fans who otherwise don't even know what the UFC is or care about it. But it'll be an interesting experience to watch the 7-fight pay-per-view, especially with the tough Brazil kind of shoved right in the middle of it.
Yeah, very strange. That's a contractual obligation thing they did with Globo, and I'm just not sure why they didn't, move some other fights around. But it is what it is. You're going to have 2 fights on Fight Pass, 4 fights on Fox Sports 1, and then 7 fights on the pay-per-view. So we'll be back with Knuckle Up on Monday. We'll have the Care Don't Care and the vivisections, all the usual fixings. So stay tuned. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter @KidNate, @TheZaneSimon. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. And adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks, Zane.